The chandeliers sparkled like frozen waterfalls in the grand concert hall, their crystals scattering golden light over the marble floor. Waiters glided between tables draped in silk, serving champagne and hors d'oeuvres worth more than most people's monthly wages. The air was thick with perfume, laughter, and the false warmth of society's elite. Richard Bennett, the man of the night, stood near the stage with a glass of wine in hand. A self-made billionaire, his name was enough to silence a room. His sharp suit mirrored his personality, cold, polished, commanding. To the crowd, he was the epitome of success. But behind the steel eyes and quick smile was a man who had long ago buried his heart under layers of wealth. That night, he was hosting a charity gala, though everyone knew it was more about reputation than compassion. Cameras flashed, journalists scribbled, and guests boasted of donations they hardly felt in their bank accounts. And then, amid the sea of sequins and diamonds, stood a little girl. She was small, thin, her cheeks pale from years of malnourishment. Her faded pink dress hung loosely on her frame, and her shoes looked as though they had walked 1,000 miles. In her hands, she clutched a violin case so old the leather strap was fraying. Some guests frowned at the sight of her. Others whispered, "Who let her in here?" Richard's eyes landed on her, and a smirk curved across his lips. "What's this? Did someone bring in a street performer?" He mocked loudly enough for people nearby to laugh. He raised his glass toward her. "Come here, little one. Play us something. Impress me, and maybe I'll even adopt you." Laughter rippled through the hall. The girl froze. Her name was Lily. She was only 10, but in those years, she had endured more than most adults. Her parents had died in a car accident when she was 5, leaving her in an orphanage where dreams went to die. All she had left of her mother was this violin, a violin that had comforted her through countless nights of loneliness. Lily's eyes glistened as the crowd mocked. For a moment her tiny legs wanted to run, but then she remembered her mother's voice. "Play, Lily. Whenever you're afraid, let your violin speak for you." With trembling steps, she walked onto the stage. She placed the battered violin against her shoulder, closed her eyes, and drew the bow across the strings. The first note cut through the hall like a blade through silence. It wasn't the polished music of a child prodigy. It was raw, aching, alive. Each note carried the weight of her sorrow, the hunger, the nights crying in the dark, the endless waiting for someone to love her. But there was also defiance in her music, a quiet strength that said, "I will not be broken." The room fell silent. The laughter died. Guests who, moments earlier, were sipping wine now stood frozen, tears pooling in their eyes. Richard felt his heart clench. He had never heard music like this. He had attended operas, symphonies, private concerts with the world's greatest musicians, but none of them had touched him the way this child's music did. The final note lingered in the air, trembling like a prayer. Then silence, and then applause. A wave of it. Guests stood on their feet, clapping, shouting, even weeping. Some rushed to the stage, begging to know her name, but Lily only bowed her head, shy and unsure. Richard walked forward, slowly, as though in a trance. He climbed onto the stage, his expression unreadable. The crowd hushed, waiting. "What's your name?" he asked softly. "Lily," she whispered. "Lily." He swallowed hard, his voice thick. "You didn't just play the violin tonight. You told a story, and you changed mine." He knelt down in front of her, shocking everyone in the hall. Then, in a voice filled with something he hadn't felt in years, sincerity, he said, "If you'll let me, I would be honored to adopt you." Gasps filled the room. Cameras flashed. Some thought it was just another stunt for publicity, but Richard's eyes told the truth. This was no joke. Lily's tears fell freely. For years she had prayed for someone to choose her. Now, her dream stood right in front of her. She nodded, her small arms wrapping tightly around his neck. The hall erupted into thunderous applause. But this was just the beginning. The struggle of new beginnings, the following weeks weren't a fairy tale. Richard faced scrutiny from the media. Headlines screamed, "Billionaire's adoption stunt. genuine or PR. His board members whispered that his reputation as a hard businessman was softening. Some even advised him to drop the child if he wanted to remain respected. But Richard didn't care. For the first time in years, he felt something money couldn't buy: purpose. Life at home wasn't easy either. Lily struggled to adapt to her new world. She wasn't used to soft beds, warm meals, or closets full of clothes. She often cried. At night, afraid that if she made a mistake, Richard would send her back. One evening, Richard found her sleeping on the floor despite the king-sized bed behind her. "Why are you there, Lily?" he asked gently. She looked down, ashamed. I didn't want to mess up the sheets. I thought maybe you'd get angry." His heart broke. Kneeling beside her, he lifted her into his arms and placed her on the bed. "This is your home now. Nothing you do will make me stop loving you. Do you understand?" Lily nodded through tears. For the first time in her life, she believed those words. As months passed, Lily continued to play her violin in their home. Her music filled the mansion with warmth it had never known. Sometimes she played cheerful melodies that made Richard laugh for the first time in years. Other times her songs were quiet, thoughtful, the kind that made him sit in silence, reflecting on his own lost childhood. One night, after a particularly long day at work, Richard returned home weary and cold. As he stepped into the living room, he heard Lily playing a melody she had written herself. It was soft, hopeful, full of love. When she finished, she looked up at him shyly. "I made this song for you," she said. Richard's throat tightened. He sat down, pulling her close. "Do you know what you've given me, Lily?" he whispered. "I thought I had everything, but I had nothing until I had you." Lily grew into a celebrated violinist, her music known across the world. Concert halls overflowed with audiences eager to hear her play. Yet no matter how grand the stage, Richard was always there in the front row, clapping the loudest. When asked about her inspiration, Lily always smiled and said, "Once, a man mocked me, but then he listened. And when he listened, he gave me more than a home. He gave me a family." Richard lived the rest of his days not as the man who owned billions, but as the father who had been saved by a little girl's song. His true fortune was not in his wealth, but in the music that healed him and the child who taught him how to love again. And that was the story that reminded the world. Sometimes the smallest voice, the softest note, can change the hardest of hearts.